Hey, my name is Esther Goldstein, and I'm hopping on to talk to you about something that's related to the concept of reparenting. Many of you may know me as an anxiety and trauma therapist and someone who specializes in helping adults who are healing from childhood emotional neglect, also known as emotional orphans. And one of the things that often comes up for people as they're engaging in healing, as they're processing through, making sense of their stories of the past or, building their lives, there's often an excitement and a relief, right? And, navigating the possibilities of their future that they never knew was possible, especially when you live with a lot of neglect. There's often a lot of grief, there's a lot of anger, there's confusion, or there's just a lack of understanding what your emotions are. One of the other things that I often see that comes up with people who are healing from neglect or trauma is that it's almost like their survival. Okay, so those people that are surviving, climbing the road, climbing the hills, right? Climbing whatever it is, whatever's coming their way, they're kind of extending all that energy on there, okay? And then what happens is that they get to a place and there's somewhat healing, right? So their nervous system, their minds, and their bodies really slow down. And then they're starting to build a life that's a lot more steady, okay? So there's still bumps, but they're starting to build a life that's steady. And then they hit this plateau. And when clients hit this plateau, they're like bored or confused or empty of like, I don't know how to live a life when I'm not in survival. I don't know how to live a life when I'm not in survival because my body almost feels safer, right? If there's chaos or neglect or trauma or family lies or whatever, there's this constant brain activity in the brain and on the body. You're always like on hyper vigilance or fight, flight, or freeze, or maybe even collapse, which we'll talk about in another video, right? The different survival instincts. But there's always this movement. And then when you're in survival and even in healing, there's a certain activity of like, right? Where you're either very anxious or very depressed, both of those, right? Or like irritable or avoidant or whatever your behaviors are or obsessions are or symptoms are, there's an activity, okay? And as that settles and you help your brain orient to a calmer way of being in good therapy or in good healing or in stability, the brain almost orients. And there's another part that might just be like, wait, this is such a weird life. Now, here's what happens, and this is what I often say, is like many times people describe like they feel like they're in a desert. I knew I wanted to get here, but either I didn't think I would make it past here, or I just don't even know what here is. I never dreamed about that. Like I just had a vision of survival, or I just had a vision of let me make a better life, but I don't know when I'm here, like, like that plateau, and they're plateauing somewhat or enough, right? Obviously, people always have triggers and things come up and down. When they're in healing, it's never just like you heal and then your life is perfect. But when it's more or less steady, what I find a lot with people is like they almost don't know what to do. And a lot of times what happens is like there's a grief of like, where's my mom and dad? Or where are my friends? Or where are the life skills that no one ever taught me? Right? And there's a whole new level here of like developing skills, expanding the imagination. What do you want for your children? What do you want for your love life? What kind of boundaries do you want to set? Or what kind of beautiful dreams do you want to create? And this is connected to reparenting, and I'll tell you why. If you had a loving parent, or if you had a loving mentor, or if you had a loving older sibling who could envision for you a beautiful, glorious, deliciously rich and nourishing life with love and with meaning and with direction, what would they have in this life, right? As you settle down, what would they have in this like canvas if we were to build something, right? Like what would they imagine for you? And I almost want you to like step into that role and imagine yourself as like, fast forward yourself like 10 years time or 20 years time. Okay. And imagine like what would an adult version, an older, wiser version, for some people they think of like an 80-year-old wise woman looking back at you, right? And who you are today. What would that person want? What would this future self you want for yourself as you're navigating and as you're building? Right? We want to look for like retroactive wisdom. Is it like, I want you to have more love? I want you to contribute to society. I want you to just have like a home where you make like warm cooked dinners every night. I want you to just enjoy the love of a relationship that you're in. Like, what is it right here, right? And what are the skills that you need? Do you need to learn communication skills? Do you need to learn how to socialize and develop, some good relational dynamics? Do you want to explore more your concept of spirituality or your soul? Right? You really want to look at this. And so I just also want to name it because because so many times people come in to counseling, like on the one hand, they're like, focusing on survival. And when the shifts happen, they're almost is just like, what am I doing here? Or I'm disoriented, or I'll be fine. And then it's like, wait, I'm not fine because I actually don't even know where to go from here, right? The world I'm used to is so chaotic. Like, what do I do in this kind of world that's a lot more steady? And then the other piece is like, well, I'm missing so much. Like, I didn't come with the tools that other people gave me because I was so busy in surviving. Like, how do I navigate that, right? A lot of the nuances of relationships, of emotion regulation, of boundaries need to be learned then, right? In the more studying place. The other thing that sometimes happen, and this I find very frequent, is that people reach out for counseling when they are going through a hard time, right? Dealing with something stressful. I've also found that many times people reach out for counseling when their life is steady for the first time in their life, or when things are silent, or when things settle down. And suddenly all of their pains or emotions or, hunger for healing comes up. And I've had so many people say to me, I don't get it. My life is better than it's ever been. Why am I in pain? Why am I in distress? And I just really want to normalize that it's sometimes, or I would say almost always, it's like when things settle down, or when there's finally like a space to tend to some part of you, or some emotion, or some hope, or some dream, or some healing, or some pain, it's gonna open up. So when people say, well, for the first time I have like a loving partner, or for the first time I have money in my bank account, or for the first time, I don't know, I don't have to run, and all of a sudden there's this feeling inside. It's just, I want to just say, if this is you, like, it's so normal, right? Somebody just the other day asked me, I was doing like a carpool pickup, and this mom knows that I'm a therapist, and she said, can I just ask you something? Like, does it make sense that my life's really good, but like suddenly I'm remembering a memory of a trauma, or like a loss, or an abandonment, or whatever it was from her past, so many years later? Like, my life's good. And I looked at her and I was like, yes, 100%, right? If you're having symptoms and something is bothering you, honor that and tend to it, right? Like, I'm not saying she does or doesn't need therapy, but I just want to name the fact that some of the old-fashioned beliefs are like, if you have an issue, you get help. If your life is better, you don't need it. But people forget like the incredibly wise and brilliant capacity of our brain to push things aside, and then when things are steady, for sometimes things to bubble up, because our brains and our bodies are programmed for health and healing. So they want to like clear it out so we can move on with life. So I just want to normalize all of that in terms of healing, and in terms of the concept of reparenting, is noticing when things settle down, or when things get a little bubbly, being able to envision yourself as someone who is reparenting, and, almost like revisioning, or for the first time visioning into who you can be as you heal, and as you grow, and as you evolve, and the dreams that I wish someone has had for you, if you can have those wishes, if this adult version or this elderly version of self can have it for you. In good therapy, or if you have a good mentor, oftentimes like this could be really healing, where someone could say to you, I wish this for you, or I trust this for you, and we're going to do this together, right? I know for my own self, many times with my clients, I've said to them, I'm thinking specifically of one client when she was going through a really hard time. And I said to her, like, I have this vision, and I've had it for you ever since we began working together. We worked together for many years. And I said, and I'm holding it pretty tight, and I kind of believe that some version of this is going to happen. And I really meant it. Like, I really believed, and it had to do with like a certain love. And I wasn't sure exactly how love would manifest in her life, but I really saw as she healed that there were more conduits of love and connection coming into her life, in whatever way it was for her. But I just want to say this. So like, I think if you can get someone who can hold that vision, and an authentic one, not just a fluffy one of like, oh, I believe you can heal, like not just a generic belief, but a really authentic to you and your dreams, and knowing your strengths, and also knowing your struggles. But coming back to this reparenting exercise, is I think there's also a power when we do it with ourselves. I know for my own self, I write poetry. I often collage a vision for 6 months time, and then I do another one 6 month time, and it can be something nuanced. But for your own self, find your own way. You could collage about it, or you could draw about it, or you could write about it, but almost imagine like this adult version, imagining what's on this terrain for you. Is there a skill? Is there some relationship? Is there something exciting, or a dream, something very tangible, right, that is hoped for and wanted for you in this phase of life? And if there's also things that are bubbling up because your life is in a more steady place, just know that that's so normal, and that when people come out of survival, Many times there's this space where there's grief or there's, this needing to reorient, and that's really normal. And if you're in that space, you can and you will learn the skills, and you can and you will acclimate. And just like there's transgenerational wounding, there's also transgenerational healing. And if you're committed to engaging in the healing, then trust that as you learn these skills and as you do your work, you're not just allowing healing for yourself, but you're also really allowing healing for the generation to come. If it's your children, if it's your siblings, if it's people in your life, you're really paving out a new path, right? If this path feels kind of empty or it's foreign, it means no one's paved it for you. And so you're going to be the bold one who's going to pave this path of healing and of clarity and of skills. And then, someone else in your family path is going to be like, oh, that's the path I'm going to come on, or at least I can follow this as I develop my own terrain. Okay, so I just want you to acknowledge and to own your journey in all of this. If you have any questions or if you want to know about free resources, definitely check out our website linked below. My name is Esther. I'm super committed and devoted to healing, and I'm often creating content because I really believe and I've seen in the power of emotional healing when people tend to their own, inner child healing and, tend to shifting their own relationship dynamics and living and loving a much richer and wholesomer way. So sign up for our email list if you're not signed up, and check out our free downloads. And if there's any way we could be of help to connecting you to a resource, please don't hesitate to reach out. Myself and my team are more than happy to help you.